Hello YouTubers, Alaska Prepper here. Happy Sunday to all of you. We have several months to prepare for an event that is going to change everything about how we live our lives. Before I start, I want to say thank you very much to Genesis Gold Group for sponsoring this video. Ladies and gentlemen, I've seen a few videos here and there, seen a few articles here and there of people getting their bank accounts just blocked or locked, or people that have actually lost their bank accounts where the bank doesn't even know where it is. So I thought I'd look into it a bit. And I found that this is happening an awful lot. And in one case, almost 1 million people got their bank accounts locked. I want to read to you this article right here. Verbatim. Digital currency. The Fed moves towards monetary totalitarianism. I want to read this to you, and I'm going to try not to get excited. And then I want to show you what we've got to look forward to once this comes to be, because we have about 6.5, maybe 7 months before the Federal Reserve or the government, they're one and the same, turn us into a digital currency. The Federal Reserve is sowing the seeds for its central bank digital currency, a CBDC. And you've been hearing CBDC an awful lot more from federal pundits and also media. And in a favorable way, of course. But you haven't really been hearing it in a favorable way from people that are on social media like myself, because we can see through the smoke. We can see what this is really all about. Even, I forgot the name of that Federal Reserve Bank president. He Kanish or something like that. I forget his name, but even he is opposed to this.
Right? No, seriously. So what is it that a CBDC could do that Venmo can't do? And all I get is a bunch of hand waving. I get a bunch, well, maybe it's better for financial inclusion. Maybe it's better for cross-border remittances. Maybe. Is there any evidence that it is? And, they say, well, what about China? China's doing it. Well, I can see why China would do it. If they want to monitor every one of your transactions, you could do that with the central bank digital currency. You can't do that with Venmo. If you want to impose negative interest rates, you could do that with the central bank digital currency. You can't do that with Venmo. And if you want to directly tax customer accounts, you could do that with the central bank digital currency. You can't do that with Venmo. So I get why China would be interested. Why would the American people be for that?
I talked about him here a while back, maybe a month and a half ago on a video that I did, where even a Federal Reserve Bank president is opposed to this, saying, why in the world would Americans want this when it's going to take away from them their freedoms? I mean, that's pretty much what he said, paraphrasing it, of course. It may seem that the purpose of a CBDC is to facilitate transactions and enhance economic activity. But CBDCs are mainly about the government control over individuals. If a CBDC were implemented, the central bank would have access to all transactions in addition to being capable of freezing accounts with the push of one button, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Genesis Gold Group, for sponsoring this video. Ladies and gentlemen, I've received several emails in the past asking me what I would do if I had a 401k or an IRA that I wanted to protect against the inflationary forces that we've experienced and are experiencing now. I'm not a financial advisor, but the folks at Genesis Gold Group specialize in helping those who want to diversify their excess wealth by converting their fiat currency retirement plans into a plan that is backed by real money. So if you're in a position where you are wondering what you can do in order to diversify or insulate your wealth against what I like to call the inferno of inflation, give Genesis Gold Group a call, and they can provide you with the information that you need in order to make an educated decision. Once again, thank you very much, Genesis Gold Group, for sponsoring this video. It may seem dystopian, something that only totalitarian governments would do, but there have been recent cases of asset freezing in Canada and Brazil, and in other places as well, including the United States of America, ladies and gentlemen. Moreover, a CBDC would give the government the power to determine how much a person can spend. It doesn't matter how much money you have. Establish expiration dates for deposits. I've talked about this in the past when I first started talking about CBDCs, that they can tell you, all right, this $100 that you're getting today, if you don't use it up in a month, it's going to turn into 90. And then if you don't use it up in 60 days, it's going to turn into 60, etc., until it's all gone. no matter how hard you worked for it. And even penalize people who save money. How would they penalize people who save money? With negative interest rates, which is the same thing as putting an expiration date on your money. The war on cash is also a reason why government wants to implement CBDCs. The end of cash would mean less privacy for individuals and would allow central banks to maintain a monetary policy of negative interest rates with greater ease. You see that, ladies and gentlemen? That is what they want to do. They want to be able to control how much you can spend, where you can spend it, and when you can spend it. Once a CBDC arrives, instead of a deposit being a commercial bank's liability, a deposit would be the central bank's liability. Now, what do they mean by that? Try to explain to those of you that may not understand this. Whenever you deposit money or fiat currency, okay? For those of you that understand money, when I say money, I mean fiat currency, like this right here, like this piece of a fiat currency that I tore up the other day. So, but I'll refer to it as money because most people know that as money. Whenever you deposit money into a bank, that bank is endowed to give you your money back, either with interest or without, depending on what account, what type of account you deposited in. So now that they have that money, it is a liability to them because they are endowed to give it back to you. That's why they say it's a liability to the banks. However, if you deposit your money into the Federal Reserve, which is what would happen with a CBDC, the banks no longer have that liability, but the Federal Reserve does. And the Federal Reserve, ladies and gentlemen, they're the ones that control the money. They're the ones that can put negative interest rates on the money, therefore putting an expiration date on the money that you have in their account. In 2020, China launched a digital yuan pilot program. As mentioned in Seeking Alpha, China wants to implement a CBDC because this would give the government a remarkable amount of information about what consumers are spending their money on. The government could easily track digital payments with a CBDC. Bloomberg noted in an article published when the digital yuan pilot program was launched that the digital currency offers China's authorities a degree of control never possible with cash. And as I've stated in the past, they're going to come out with a CBDC first, and then they're going to find a reason of why to eliminate cash. A CBDC would allow the Chinese government to monitor mobile app purchases, which accounted for about 16% of the country's gross domestic product in 2020, more closely. Bloomberg describes how much control a CBDC could give Chinese authority. And here's Bloomberg. The PBOC, the People's Bank of China, also indicated that it could put limits on the sizes of some transactions. For example, if you go to the gas station and you're using that MCC code for a gas station, merchant category code, right? Just like they're doing with firearms now and credit cards. And they can say, well, you're only allowed to get so much gasoline or diesel at a gas station today. So they can put a limit on how much you can spend on a certain product. And continuing on, or even require an appointment to make large purchases. Some observers wonder whether payments could be linked to the emerging social credit system. We've talked about that as well, where citizens with good behavior could be whitelisted for more privileges, while those with criminal and other infractions find themselves pretty much blacklisted or left out, as they say here. The Chinese government is waging war on cash, and they are not alone. In 2017, the IMF published a document offering suggestions to governments, even in the face of strong public opposition, on how to move toward a cashless society. A cashless society, ladies and gentlemen, with a CBDC is the dream of every dictator that's ever existed. Governments and central banks claim that the shift to a cashless society would help prevent crime and increase convenience for ordinary people. Of course it will. But the real motivation behind the war on cash is more government control over the individual. And of course that is as well. And the US is getting ready to establish its own CBDC or something similar like the Fed coin, which in my opinion is the same thing. The first step was taken in August when the Fed announced the Fed Now. Fed Now will be an instant payment system and is scheduled to be launched between May and July of next year, 2023. FedNow is particularly identical to Brazil's PIX, and PIX was implemented by the Central Bank of Brazil in November of 2020. It is a convenient instant payment system using mobile devices without user fees. So they're going to make it very convenient at first, ladies and gentlemen, and a reputation as being safe to use. I've stated in the past that when this CBDC first comes out, it's going to be so great. It's going to be so fast. People are going to love it. It's going to be so convenient. And then the government's going to come on and say, hey, we need to get rid of cash because of this. Whatever it is, fill in the blanks. And then once cash is eliminated, that's when the tyranny really begins. Now listen, ladies and gentlemen, I understand that I talk about this a lot, but it's because it is so very important that you understand where we're headed. Because if you can see where we're headed in the future, be it the next month, 6 months, 1 year, 10 years, you can better prepare for that. And this is coming. This is coming, ladies and gentlemen. They just need the next big crisis to convince most Americans, which is one of the reasons why I think that democracy is a terrible form of government, because they'll convince most Americans, especially those that are in despair, to go on to this. And it will be voted in, and the people will fall behind it. And there will be a very small or minor minority screaming about it, like myself, just like I was screaming about those stimulus checks a couple of years ago, saying it's only going to increase inflation and it's going to make the price of everything go up, and people aren't even going to be able to afford to eat, where today almost 3/4 of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck, and 20% of Americans this last year couldn't even afford a turkey dinner for Thanksgiving. And where 40 to 50, I think it's maybe 60% of Americans are now finding themselves in food banks because they can't afford to buy food. And this is the same warning that I'm giving, but it's only going to be a lot worse than what we've already experienced. And they continue, a year after its launch, PIX already had 112 million people registered, or just over half of the Brazilian population. Of course, frauds and scams do occur over PIX, but most are social engineering scams and are not system flaws. That is, they are scams that exploit the public's lack of knowledge of the technology. Bear in mind that PIX is not the Brazilian CBDC, it's just a payment system. However, the BCB has access to transactions made through PIX, so the Brazilian Central Bank has access to all of the transactions that are being made via that platform. Therefore, PIX can be considered the seed of the Brazilian CBDC, just like the FedNow will be considered the seed of the United States CBDC. It is already an invasion of the privacy of Brazilians, and the FedNow is set to follow suit. There you go. I haven't read this article, by the way. I'm just thinking out loud when I break in. Additionally, the New York Fed has recently launched a 12-week pilot program, and we've talked about that, with several commercial banks to test the feasibility of a CBDC in the United States. The program will use digital tokens to represent bank deposits. Institutions involved in the program will make simulated transactions to test the system, according to Reuters. The pilot program will test how banks using digital dollar tokens in a common database can help speed up payments. Banks involved in the pilot program include BNY Mellon, Citi, HSBC, MasterCard, PNC Bank, TD Bank, Truist, US Bank, and Wells Fargo. The global financial messaging service provider SWIFT is also participating to support interoperability across the international financial ecosystem. The IMF is also thinking of a way to connect different CBDCs under a single system. In other words, the IMF plans to create a PIX FedNow for CBDCs around the globe. And here they say things could change as money becomes tokenized, and that is accessible to anyone with the right private key and transferable to anyone with access to the same network. Examples of tokenized money include so-called stablecoins, such as USD Coin and the central bank digital currency. And finishing it off here, the reception of Brazil's PIX shows that FedNow will likely be widely adopted due to its convenience. However, this positive economic and technological element should not overshadow the increased control instant payment systems will give to central banks. The BCB has access to all transactions made by Brazilians through Pix, and this would only get worse should a CBDC be implemented. With a CBDC, it would be easier for the government to carry out expansionary monetary policies which cause misallocations of resources and business cycles and exert greater control over its citizens' finances. In short, ladies and gentlemen, a CBDC will allow control to the Federal Reserve, i.e. the government, to everything that you can and can't buy. It will allow them control in order to shut you down if they don't like what you say. It will allow them the control to shut you down if they don't like the political ideology that you hold. It will give them control to shut you down to go and buy something wherever you want to buy it. So if they don't want you to buy that boomstick this month, you're not going to buy it. You're just not going to buy it because it will be system wide. If they think that you've bought too much beef this month, you're not going to buy it. And you can just go on, ladies and gentlemen, use your imagination because any scenario here is possible when the money that you use is completely centralized. You see, cash is not completely centralized. Yes, it comes from one place. It's created because of this one system, the Federal Reserve. However, you can use it how you want, either in or out of the system. Meaning that if you want to go to a department store and buy something with cash, you can. If you want to go to the back alley of somewhere and buy something with cash that maybe isn't sold in the department store or that maybe somebody is selling because they can't afford to eat that month and they're selling at a discount, then you can. That's out of the system. But this CBDC will give you only one choice, and that will be the choice that is being made for you. Let me give you some examples of what's been going on in just the last couple of years. And then you can use your own imagination as to how much worse it will get. Now, this is without us having a CBDC, ladies and gentlemen. Western Australian man's $580,000 life saving disappears from Eubank account. And I read this story, and the gentleman said that the bank can't find it. They're just as amazed as he is. They don't know where it is. They can't find it. Now, imagine how much worse it would be if someone actually had control over your cash and can lock you out at any time. This one's dated June of this year. I wanted to cry. Bank of America closes woman's account without explanation, despite her needing the money for surgery. Woman locked out of TSB bank account, forced to borrow £10,000 from family and friends to pay staff. So she got locked out of her business account. Spring Hill woman finds herself locked out of her bank accounts. These are all different articles from different time periods in the last year or two. Bank block. I was locked out of my HSBC account with no warning. I only have a few days left of money to buy food for my kids. I'm locked out of my bank account, but Co-op Bank doesn't answer. New Jersey man loses $80,000 in life savings after routine bank transfer. And the last one, ladies and gentlemen, out of probably the thousands of stories that we could find, Canada begins to release frozen bank accounts of Freedom Convoy protesters. And this is dated the 25th of February of this year. And if you read on, it would tell you that there were over 800,000 bank accounts that were blocked or locked, that people were locked out of. Now, ask yourself a question. If they have all this power now, imagine how much more power and control they would have if you had a CBDC. I remember getting an email. Let me go ahead and finish off with this. I remember getting an email from a gentleman saying that that his account was blocked and he's Canadian, that he had an account that was blocked. And I remember him telling me this. He says, thank goodness that we had some gold. Because while our accounts were blocked, we were able to take that gold and sell it like in a local coin shop or a pawn shop. I don't remember if he told me coin shop or pawn shop. And they were able to live off of that gold until their accounts were reestablished. Having said that, ladies and gentlemen, I hope that you have a great day, and I hope that you prepare. How do you prepare for this AP? Well, I think that holding gold and silver, putting a little bit of your excess wealth on the side, or even emergency funds on the side in the form of gold and silver, I think that's a good idea, but I'm not a professional. I am not a financial advisor. You have to do your own research. I think that's a good idea. It obviously worked out for the gentleman that I'm talking about that sent me that email. And that was several months ago that he sent me that email. I just remember because I was talking about this. All right. But get everything that you need. Continue to get all of the things that you know that you'll need for an extended period of time. That way, if you are locked out for whatever reason, you can still continue to live and exist. All right, ladies and gentlemen, because I don't think that this CBDC will last forever. I think that everyone that asks for this will eventually wake up to the fact that it's nothing but a tool to use tyranny against the people. Having said that, again, thank you Genesis Gold Group for sponsoring this video. Have a great day, ladies and gentlemen. Remember to be good to each other. When good people do good things happen. Remember to reach one, teach one, and repeat. If we all did this, the world would be a better place, and you know that it will be a better place. Many blessings to every one of you and your families. Merry Christmas, and God bless America. I'm Alaska Prepper, and I'm out. God bless.